Good evening and welcome to Copperfield's Books virtual event with Juan Felipe Herrera and Kim Shuck. My name is Jamie Madsen and I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Copperfield's Books, and I'll also be your host for the evening. Copperfield's Books has been committed to literature, education, and creating community together since our founding in 1981. So just a couple of housekeeping items before I introduce tonight's speakers. We will be using the chat box to provide links to view upcoming Copperfield's events, links to purchase and details for purchasing both of tonight's titles, and we'll also include my contact info for post-event information. Additionally, the Q&A box will be your go-to with any questions or comments for the speakers. Tonight will feature about 30 to 45 minutes of in speaking and will be followed by a live Q&A. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see an icon that says Q&A. Please submit your questions here rather than replying to my post in the chat box. It's much more convenient for the end. So without further ado, I am thrilled to introduce our first author of the evening. Juan Felipe Herrera was the 21st U.S. Poet Laureate from 2015 to 2017, which is he was the first Latino to receive this honor. Huge. The son of migrant farm workers, he was educated at UCLA and Stanford University and received his MFA from the University of Iowa Writers Workshop. In addition to publishing more than a dozen collections of poetry, Herrera has written short stories, young adult novels, and children's literature. And in addition to Juan tonight, we have Kim Shuck. Kim Shuck is a Cherokee Polish-American poet, author, weaver, and beadwork artist. Kim draws from Southeastern Native American culture and tradition, as well as contemporary urban life. She was born in San Francisco and belongs to the Northern California Cherokee diaspora. She is San Francisco's 7th Poet Laureate. So they are both with us tonight to talk about their latest titles, Every Day We Get More Legal, and Deer Trails. So I'm really excited to hand it over to you, Kim, and let's open up talking about Deer Trails.
Okay, Deer Trails. When I found out that I was going to be the laureate of San Francisco, I scooped together some of my more love lettery poems about San Francisco, especially because the gentrification problem in the city was getting pretty serious. And I kind of thought there were a lot of people who might not know the city the way I knew it, the way my family knows it. I wasn't just born in the city. My mother was also born in the city at St. Mary of Help, which was on Valencia and about 16th Street. It's not there anymore, but there are still a few people who remember it. So I wrote about the city I know before it all started getting painted like an above ground cemetery, everything gray. We've been calling it gentrification gray. And you know, they have those entitlement orange doors along with that. So that's what the book is. It's you know, how I know the city. And everywhere I go, people will say things like, there aren't that many people who were born here anymore, but there are a lot of people who were born in San Francisco. It's just that you might not know that they are. My childhood was spent for the most part in the Mission. The Mission, the Castro, Noe Valley before it became Noe Valley, when it was still the hate. Nobody wanted to raise kids there anymore. So that's what it is. I'm going to read you a poem. Maybe we'll do this in conversation, Juan Felipe. Let me read you this poem. Coming down into Eureka Valley. The hillside remembers being wild, and the trees still talk about the orchard that replaced purple bunch and rattlesnake grass. The arroyo. Salamanders coil under ceramic pots and sing songs about wet years under the bay laurel and the yerba buena. Explain the fog and how the hillsides came to be. White roses grew from a rootstock after the graft failed. The bearded iris bolted. Every 10 years or so, saffron crocus bloom under Mirabelle plums. So I'm from a part of the city where there were a lot of fruit trees, and when my mom was a kid, there was a dairy down at the foot of the hill, and these deep stories really they're important for a place, I think. So, do you want to read one now, Juan Felipe? We'll go back and forth. Mm-hmm.
Sure, we can trade. You want to trade like that?
Yeah, let's do that.
We start trading anytime.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're talking about your mom being born in San Francisco,
Mhm.
and you too, and those were beautiful days. My mom used to work at the St. Francis in the 40s, and she called herself a salad girl because she worked in the the cooking area with the chefs, but she was a salad girl. And we'll just leave it right there. And she really, I mean, that was nice. I mean, she used to go to the St. Francis, get her all suited up and do her salads. Would have been nice to, get another kind of position. But for the moment, that was her reality. When Lawrence Welk was playing in the lobby, and those kind of days, back in the 40s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And on and off. So I lived in San Francisco on and off as well in the 60s, a little bit in the 50s, a little bit in the 60s, and a lot of bit in the late 70s and early 80s. Yeah. Touch the earth. From every day we get more illegal. Oh, this is what we do. This is what the cotton truck driver does. This is what the tobacco leaf roller does. This is what the washerwoman and the laundry worker does. This is what the grape and artichoke worker does, not to mention the cucumber workers, not to mention the spinach and beet workers, not to mention the poultry woman workers, not to mention the packing house workers and the winery workers and the lettuce and broccoli and peach and apricot and squash and apple and that almost magical watermelon and the speckled melon and the honeydew. The workers, this is what they do. Notice how they bend in the fires no one sees. Notice their ecstatic colors and their knotted shirts. Notice where they cash their tiny and wrinkled checks and pay stubs. Stand in that small town desert sundry store. Then walk out, they do, and stall for a moment, they do, underneath this colossal tree with its condor wings, shedding solace for a second or two. Notice how they touch the earth for you. Traveling from Fresno to San Francisco, there's a lot of trails, and one of them is through Fireball. And it's a small town, and there's a lot of small towns and tiny towns and bigger towns. And there I was buying chips and probably chips, and I don't know what else I got there, but I got chips. and there was this long line of migrant workers, long line of migrant workers, and they had their little checks. And you don't want to go to Bank of America, you always go to the shop, the grocery store, and get a little something, a little, a loaf of bread, and maybe you're buying something, and buying a loaf of bread so maybe you can cash my check. And there they were in line and they were cashing their checks. And that was such a familiar scene for me. And it's all, this kind of, I took that into this poem. And my uncle Fernando was a laundry worker at the Fairmont in San Francisco. El Fermo, he worked at the Fermo. And, but his hands were, you know, they were knotted. His hands were just big knots. And my Aunt Lela worked at the laundry, I think on 29th and Sanchez, 29th and Sanchez. So, you know, they're kind of in here too. So, so it's you know, paying homage to the workers that we all know, but we don't see that often.
No. My grandfather was in the painters union in the time you're talking about, but my grandmother worked at the Fairmont in for those who are keeping score, we're figuring out how our poems are related now. My grandmother worked there in housekeeping. She was one of the housekeeping girls.
Yeah. What years did she work there?
Oh, I want to say the mid 30s to
Oh,
the 50s, all the way through.
the 50s?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they may have known each other.
Yeah.
Never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my grandfather was part of the general strike in San Francisco
Oh.
that we don't necessarily see. This city used to be a serious union town, and it's kind of slipped.
It kind of, yes, it did. Yes, it did. Like there's a number of friends of mine that are watching us, Kara and Kathleen and Rachel. We hung out quite a bit in the early days in UCLA, the late 60s. And we used to come to San Francisco and hang out quite a bit. Used to hang out quite a bit. And I had these really cool bell-bottom caramel corduroy striped pants. And it was really groovy feeling, you know. And swagging in North Beach and going downstairs, city lights, you know.
Sure.
Downstairs and, you know, the Buddhist books and philosophy books.
Sure. I used to spend a lot of time in City Lights. We've got a City Lights worker in the chat right now. I used to spend a lot, Josiah Louise. I used to spend a whole lot of time down there because it was sort of a sanctuary, but also,
yeah,
I don't know how well you knew Carol Lee Sanchez.
A little bit, not much. I didn't know.
She was my mentor. So she used to run the poetry readings over at the Coffee Gallery over there in North Beach.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Do you remember the bunch of chapbooks that were in City Lights? I forgot where they were placed. They could have been downstairs, or they could have been by the cashier. Just a bunch of chapbooks. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I still have some copies of some of them. Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that I mean, my grandparents really worked hard when you could actually have two working class people have jobs and then you could buy a house in the city, right? This is over now, but there was a time. And so it's kind of nice because I ended up with a house, so I get to keep my books. I don't have to give everything away every time I move.
That's right. It's a lot of giving away.
Yeah.
Giving away. Juan Felipe, do you have another book? No, man. Well, how much money did you make the book? Well, I gave them all away. You know, I just, you know. You were at a reading, you know. What are you gonna do?
I don't know. You know, Devora told me one time your mom gets a copy of your book and everybody else has to pay for it. And I've never been able to do that. I don't know why, but I can't do it. Okay. I got another poem. Okay. This is called Watershed. The village sites still sing, resonate through hidden shell mounds from every watershed that wrap the hills on thick-aired nights like these. Songs throb through the sidewalks, through the bark of bay trees and the ache of full bloom, and every angled slab of rock peering through the hillsides around Rocky Point and Glen Park Canyon. Remember their true names and call them out like birds do, announcing boundaries, unseen joy in these hillsides. The water still runs here.
Oh yeah. Unseen joy. That's right. Yeah.
I think it's a gas that our families might have known each other though.
I think so. I think so. Did you ever go to 20th and Harrison
Sure.
in the early years? Early
Mhm.
years?
Sure.
You did?
Yeah.
Let's say late 50s.
Oh no, not the late 50s. Well,
Yeah.
I might have, but I would have been in somebody's arms wrapped up in blankets. I won't remember it.
20th and Harrison, was a place that I guess you could, if we were there now, not as we are now, back in the 50s, like in 1958, there was a lot of room. There's a lot of room to do your thing.
Mhm.
And my aunt uh, Albina built the first, or had the first on 20th and Harrison. It's a Victorian, two-story Victorian, and on the corner. And she started the La Reina Mexicatessen, and
Ooh.
it was a Mexicatessen. And she had all the goodies out there, beneath the glass. You go inside, and there it is, laid out, and you could get a torta or a torpedo, and all the workers from the Beacons, was right across the street, would come over, and you can get an orangeade, Christopher's Milk, the name of the mayor, Christopher's Milk, or you can come down from Regal Pale Brewery half a block up. So that was great. And the big job I had was getting a piece of Mexican candy, the hot pink stripe on a white rectangle of coconut pressed candy. So I sat in the front of a hot plate, me and my cousin Vicente, and we got a cellophane, sheet, and you put on top of the hot plate, you put for a second, the candy, and then you roll it, and it pops it together, and then you fold it, and seals it, and you fold it, and you seal it. And then we went with my tío Beto, who did the pan dulce, the Mexican bread, and vats, and my tia ran the Mexicatessen, and my cousins were Chicano beatniks, because it was the late 50s, so they were Chicano beatniks, and they had albums of Cal Tjader and Horace Silver and Dave Brubeck and Thelonious Monk on the wall. And then my cousin insisted that I join a Mission Branch Boys Club and
Mhm.
join his boxing team, where he told all his big giant friends that I would beat them all up. I said, I'm not that kind of guy. I didn't last too long, like maybe 5 seconds. Those are pretty days, pretty days. And now it's all, like you say, gentrified.
Yeah. My grandparents met at the Polish Hall down there on Shotwell.
Oh, Shotwell. Where do they meet?
Um,
At the,
when they
at the little park there?
the Polish Hall down on Shotwell.
Shotwell and 17th?
Yeah, it's 17th, I think. Yeah.
Where the basketball courts are?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Oh, I live right there also.
Yeah, that's where my grandparents met.
Oh, that's a nice area.
They used to like going dancing. All those cultural halls had dances all the time, and you know,
Nice.
all the time. You could always hear music. But what I remember is there was this great place right there on 24th. As I want to say it was at 24th and Shotwell, and it was there had been a Mexican bakery and there had been a Polish bakery, and somebody's daughter married somebody's son, and so there was a bakery where you could get really good mock and also extremely good pan dulce.
Really?
It just put it in the same. Yeah.
24th and Shotwell, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Never went to 24th and Shotwell, even though I was living out there. Don't remember 24th. Who was there?
Well, there was the bakery, and then there was I don't know, just all the stuff that there always was. There was like, I think it was across the street, there was a garage, and then there was like,
What,
um,
24th and Shotwell. I'm gonna have to think on that one. That's a good one.
it's hard because if I go back now, there are the buildings that I noticed really clearly are changed, so it's hard to like place it, you know. But
What's the
every
next
once
street?
in a while,
What's
what?
the next street? What's the next street to Shotwell? Was it Treat or something?
I think so, yeah. Like right there. I think there might be a, yeah, might be Treat. Might be Folsom? No, that's farther up. I
Yeah.
don't know. I couldn't tell you at this moment. Getting old. Um, but I also have a funny thing because my grandfather was a house builder, and there was this place. There was a old butcher shop down there where this German guy used to cure his own meat, and so he had these barrels that he used to do like corned beef and stuff in, these big barrels. And
Yeah.
Grandpa at one point went, "Well, when you're done with that barrel, can I have it?" And he took it. So in the basement, I have like all of this sort of small pieces of wood kind of tossed in this old corned beef barrel from right down there.
Oh, that's fun having a barrel like that.
It's
That's,
it's fun knowing the place,
yeah,
deep knowledge of a place, you know.
that's hard. You know what they use? What kind of meat they used to sell at the butcher shop on Folsom and 20th? Folsom and 20th was a corner store, and then one block further towards I don't even know what direction it is. One block towards away from San Francisco City. I don't know what direction that is. What is it? South? I don't know. South? So anyway, one block that way on Folsom off of 20th, there was
Yeah,
a,
south.
yeah, there was a butcher shop where they sold horse meat.
Uh-huh.
Remember that?
Mm. I remember when you could get things like that. Yeah.
Poor.
Now it's even hard to get good tripe, which you could get at every butcher shop before.
Yeah, at York on 24th and York, that
Yeah.
little store on the corner.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the good life.
Yeah.
Then there's a
Marissa Thompson just said that she likes hearing all of the San Francisco stories, but I know Marissa has a great poem about the Chinese food slash donut place. It's there on,
that's good.
yeah. We all write our time, right? We write our time,
Matter of time.
you
Yeah,
know?
that's
And really, no time, like the people aren't more heroic at one time or another. It's just that, you know, the struggle changes, right? It doesn't change enough, but it does shift a little bit, right?
shift a little bit. Did you ever head on down to the Muni Pier and go crab netting?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Yeah. My
What?
father is from northeastern Oklahoma, and Oklahoma Indian boys love fishing. So, one of the first things people laugh because I'm kind of known as a bit of a basket weaver, and folks go, "Well, how did you learn to do that?" And the first baskets I ever wove were re-webbing a crab net for my
Oh,
father.
yeah.
But that's when you could eat them, and now they're poisonous.
Oh, that's sad.
It
That's
is,
brutal.
yeah.
Early days, you know, it was nice to get out there early and just throw the crab net over, get your bait. Or I used to hang out with George Ing, who was the crab net dude in 6th grade, and he would put chicken in the middle of the net, the little wired bubble where you open it up and you put the whatever bait you got going, or the
Right.
bait shop. Remember the bait shop on Bay and Van Ness?
Right. Right across from the right across from Ghirardelli.
Right. Before
Yeah.
Ghirardelli was open, it was all beat down and it wasn't open.
Right.
Yeah. Should have gone in there and, hustled around in there, done something, claimed,
Right.
occupied a little space there.
You should go do a reading for the fountain. Just sort of clean space.
It was empty. Yeah, Ghirardelli Square was empty. It
Yeah.
was a building, but it wasn't working anymore. They ate too much chocolate, so they just stopped. They ran out of business. But we could see it from the pier. You could check it out from the pier, and just dream about chocolate while you're trying to catch fish or a crab, while you were getting a snag underneath the pier, thinking it was a 50-pound crab, but it was just the net getting caught up and stuff. Yeah, my. That's the book we got to write now.
There we go.
Here we go. Right? Take it away.
No, it's your turn to read a poem, darling.
My turn? Okay. Well, when I put this book together, every day we get more illegal, and I found the title near the end of the writing work. I said, what do I call it? But I had the poems were there. I had the poems, and Elaine Katzenberg at City Lights, our executive director and keen editor, whittled it down, and it was looking really good. It felt really good. But I said, something's missing here. And I remember I want to put something different. What can I do? I mean, they're poems, and that's fine. So I remembered that my mother had a tiny address book, the ones you get at those days at Crest or Woolworths or those kind of 5 and dime stores. Little tiny address book. So she got it. It was kind of a crimson lipstickish red, and it was a pretty color. But she used it as a diary. This little tiny book, she used it as a diary. And then I was thinking about that. I go, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll put a little address book in between sections of the poems. And I'll call it Address Book for the Firefly on the Road North. And I'd number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the road north kind of felt really right because I'm talking about migration and migrants. And I said, let me weave that in. So I wove it in the address book, and I gave it a little, few lines per address book, like in my mom's address book. And I also remembered Basho, the great Japanese poet. What is it, 6th century, around there? Mm-hmm. So here's the first one. And so I put that in, I layered it in, and it made the book a little softer, a little softer. It has its various tones, and I like this tone. So address book for the Firefly on the Road North, number 1. Your consciousness is ever expanding onto infinity. And that's the first one. Address book for the Firefly on the Road North, number 2. We are merely seekers, wanderers, moving alongside the mountains. And I enjoyed that one very much because I really love mountains, and I like how they hang out with you, and I like how they wear clouds on their heads, and I like what's behind the clouds when the sun is coming up. It just turns to a big blazing eye of enlightenment. It really is big up there. So I like the mountain. Address book for the Firefly on the Road North, number 3. When we reach the family shrine, made of twigs, bitten cloth, shrubs, and dirt, we bow. And that's kind of true, isn't it? There's certain sites where we go to, or we meet up with on our journeys, right? On our walking journeys, there's certain places where we stop and we honor nature or a particular tree or a particular shrine. And that's a good thing.
I agree. Josiah Luis, I just popped open the questions people are asking, and Josiah Luis has wanted us maybe talk a little bit about 24th Street and the poetic legacy of 24th Street, but maybe the mission generally, I think.
Yeah, that's a big street.
Because
There's a lot of poetry on that street.
isn't there though, right?
A lot of poetry on that street.
Why don't you start with that? Because I'm still formatting. I think my major experiences with poetry on that street happened a little later.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Your voice is still there. You're still here. You're still there.
I am. I think, well, okay, so my first poetry reading, my first for real poetry reading with a microphone and people sitting down in chairs and everything, one that didn't smell of beer, that kind of poetry reading, was at the Mission Cultural Center when Carol Lee was down there doing something, and there were also practicing for a play called Liz Estrada.
Oh yeah, con
Right?
Carlos Barón.
Yes,
That was great.
that was a great play. That was
Yeah.
my first poetry reading, and I'll tell you who else was there. Because we got to watch them rehearse, and then the audience came in for us. And the big poet of the evening was QR Hand.
All right, QR. It's a QR. That's
So
right.
I'll start there. Now you tell a story.
Oh, QR. Oh, there's just so much, it's so much. 24th, 24th, there's La Galería de la Raza. There's putting an apple crate box. So you got to challenge yourself, right? So you got to, at one point in your poetry life, you got to have an apple crate box, and you put it on the asphalt, on the street, and you stand up on it with your, or near the sidewalk with your poems, and you start blowing, like Max Schwartz used to say, "I'm going to blow some poems, man. I'm blowing some poems right now. All right, you want to go blow some poems?" I go, "Yeah, okay, I'll go blow some poems. Okay, all right." So there I was. I put the apple crate down. I said, "I got to get this done. My experience here." So I got up with some of my friends, Ricardo, some of the other poets of the scene. 24th Street was a poetry scene. So we stood on the apple crate one by one, and you get your poems, and all of a sudden you get a little circle of people. You get a little circle of people, and you got your little matched up poems, and then like Max would say, you start to blow your poems. You go like remember Kush, remember Kush and Cloud House.
Oh yeah.
Kush, who took videos of every poem of every poetry event in the world. So that's part of the 24th Street scene too. You got the apple crates, you got the Galería de la Raza, you got just walking down 24th, just walking down felt good, walking down felt good. And there's got lines on one side, and you go up, remember that taqueria on Van Ness and 24th?
Yeah.
No taqueria, remember that?
Yeah.
They tore it away, and it had some murals on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of it too. And remember the fountain, what's that called on York and 24th? There's an old-fashioned 50s ice cream fountain.
Yeah. There's still one up there though.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. And remember La Victoria on 24th and York?
Yeah.
Wasn't that great?
That's gone, but they're still baking elsewhere. So you can still get those really good cookies down the street.
Oh man, that's great.
Next time you're here, we'll go get some.
Let's go do that. And you know what happened when I got the this will be a short parenthesis. when I got the California Poet Laureate.
Mm.
The lowrider, I forgot who put it together. Could have been Ramirez. Remember Ramirez with white hair and yoga pants?
Mhm.
He may have been part of that. You know, he was a great guy. You know, he passed on.
Yeah.
He was always at the readings. And Francisco Alarcón was there, and Alejandro Murguía was there. He was Poet Laureate of San Francisco those years, I think.
Mhm.
And he said, "We're going to have a laureate. We're going to have a lowrider laureate parade for you guys." So there was a little, 4 or 5 lowrider cars with
Yeah.
their little families inside of them, and there was an Aztec dance group, all set to go right there on York and Alabama. York and Alabama. York and Alabama. York and Alabama. York
Right.
and 24th. York and 24th. And that's what we did. So we got in the cars. Alejandro got in his groovy car, and I got in my groovy Emerald smoky skulls, and emerald green, long Impala, blazing with. The owner of it was a woman with an iPod inside, and her husband was driving. But well, this is her car, and she directs the songs, and it's her car, and I'm building one for each one of our children. I said, that's beautiful. So then we turned around, went to Potrero, made a U-turn right there, a sharp U-turn, and started rolling all the way to Mission Street, to Mission. And he was blasting Santana or Bob Marley, and the car was flying way up in the sky and going on 2 wheels, and everybody was coming out. And it was a good thing. It was family. It was being part of the asphalt. You know, you were part of the asphalt, the sky, the car, the engine, the family, and poetry and this vibration of life all at the same time. It was really nice. And Alejandro was in the other car, going up and down and sideways. And we got laureated that day.
That is so cool. You mentioned Ramirez because we had my ex and I had an old 72 Dodge. And when we got a different car, we gave him that one. It was like purple metal flake already.
Oh,
We
that's,
were just like, do something with this, make it art, you know?
that's nice.
Yeah, good.
That's
It's a good segue because Stacy Lewis wanted us to talk about the experience of is it becoming laureates or being laureates? I'm sorry, this computer is
being chosen.
being chosen.
Being chosen. I think that's when we got up on the fountain near the Jimi Hendrix Church on Market,
Hmm.
and the water came down on us, and Stacy was throwing water on us. And then Elaine had a big old Aztec, conch. He said, "Woo, woo, we now crown you laureates." Woo, woo. Oh man, it was great. I'm so happy that you were the San Francisco Poet Laureate. Really happy.
I'm ready to hand that off to somebody else. I've been doing it for almost 3.5 years, and we're just out there.
Uno más. One.
No. Oh, it's good, but we talk about diversity, right? And diversity is really important. And part of diversity is continuing to change things up so that's not just one person's opinion. I mean, San Francisco's had 3.5 years of my opinion about people and their poems. So it's
Well,
time
there's a lot of people, Kim.
there are a lot of people.
So you got to get the other 500,000. You still need the other 500,000.
Right. Well, I think I'm in week 27 of doing curating a poem a day for the San Francisco Public Library. I would love to have one of yours, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
So you can send me one. But it's like kids, and at first people were kind of like, "Oh, you didn't ask me yet." I'm like, "There are a lot of people in the city. We're not stopping tomorrow to get to you." But like, I've got a whole bunch of students that have been posting their poems, and it's like, it's your city too, and poetry doesn't belong to Juan Felipe or me. It belongs to everybody, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's what the deal is. And I was like, my attitude about, and I could tell it was your attitude too. I wasn't the poet laureate to make myself look better. I was the poet laureate to, be ambassador for poetry.
That's right.
Get poetry out there. It's not
That's
about either one of us, really. Um,
yeah.
but
Except
I
that
mean,
Gucci
you
outfit.
did some awesome things for California, and you did some awesome things for the nation. I'm working on a much smaller scale, but it's good fun. I had a weird thing happen. The first time anybody
Boom, boom, boom. You still there, Kim?
can win the poet, and it basically says that's all. They were talking about how I was just a community poet. That's all I ever wanted to be. That was the goal, baby. To be a community poet.
Yeah,
I win.
yeah, that's it. That's it. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Maybe we should get those long cigarette holders, big old long cigarette holders, and a neon boa. But we would probably still be community poets if we did that. So there's no
I
way
don't
out.
know. I feel like when I was a kid, the mission was a community, like a deep, and it still is, but it's lost a lot of it's concentrated. It lost a lot of the edges,
Yeah.
But it was, anything you needed was right there. If you needed, a 1/4 inch screw head for the thing to fix if you needed somebody to fix the television set, there was somebody there to do that. All of it, right? There was a whole, what do I want to call it? A whole ecological system right there in the mission.
Yeah, there was.
And I think it never occurred to me to want to really be anywhere else because we had everything we needed.
Yeah, I would love to be back in the mission, but it's not there anymore, right?
You know what? There are some people bringing it.
Oh, really?
I feel like, yeah, I feel like the diverse, some of the diversity's been written out of that story, but I feel like folks are kind of bringing it. People decided, sat down, got stubborn, and said, "I don't want this to go away," and so,
Is that like Paul Flores and El Tecolote?
Well, Tecolote for sure, but like there's some really brilliant readings and stuff that happen, and there's Kevin Magica. Yes. Kevin has done a lot of incredible work. I don't know if you know his work. First of all, he's great. He's an incredible poet, but he's also done a lot of stuff helping people stay fed.
Yeah, I don't think I know Kevin.
You should know Kevin. I'm introducing you now. Kevin's in our chat.
All right, hey, Kevin.
And this is another one of the young people who's really, really holding up the idea of community and working together. So
That's a good thing.
yeah.
So what are we going to do with our poetry? I mean, what are we going to do with poetry now in this upside down, multi-dimensional Titanic? At the same time, the people, bringing out the light, all that at the same time. So what do we do here? Are we going to just change it all up? Is it changing all up? This thing called poetry, is it just changing all up? I feel like it is a bit. What do you think?
I feel like people's need for it has gone way up.
Oh,
I've been watching that. I feel like audiences are bigger and people are more. I feel like our job has always been making medicines we're curing different things all the time. So it's probably always changing, right?
yes. But you just mentioned that, and it feels like the audiences are kind of. You said there's a lot of it's still people really want it. You said, so that is the case. Then the audiences are the ones that are quote unquote audience, right? The communities are the changers, and we're kind of just okay. Here I go. I'm changing along with you. I'm going to change the poems with you. But it sounds like with the way you said it, the people are changing things, and we happen to be the little goldfish. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to create a new poem then, a new kind of poem. Oh, okay, here I go. And then we do this new thing that we didn't even know we were going to do, because the people are kind of bringing things together, right? They're kind of creating the new weave, the new feel, the new place, the new healing that you mentioned, keeping the heart, alive and bringing it beauty again, and radiating light. So that's where we come in. Okay, I'm coming into your radiating light. Okay, so I'm going to write some radiating light now.
Yeah.
That's
No,
how I felt when you said
I
that.
think that's how we do. Also, we're people too. We're part of the people. So
I forgot that, Kim.
thank the audience. Oh, you didn't. But I mean, we're part of the audience too. We're the audience to other people, and I feel like there's a huge dialogue between poets, and so we create what we create, and
That is
um,
true. Yeah,
and then we hear each other and we work off of that, and we're in dialogue all the time, even if we don't know it.
that's true.
I don't
That's
know. I
true.
feel like it's kind of a calling, because nobody goes into poetry to make piles of cash.
That's true. We may have it for a little time, a little pile, little pile of cash.
Yeah.
But 72 days later, it's it's a popsicle stick,
Really,
peanut butter sandwich.
yeah, really, yeah. A pot of beans on the stove,
Oh,
man.
that's the best. That's the best. Put a bean on the stove. That's the best. That's
Looks
a,
like there's another question.
oh, okay.
Oh, this one is Cara Gillette, who you recognized
Oh,
earlier. Yeah,
Kara.
Cara. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. A friend of mine once said that the poet is a priest of the invisible. Thank you for not forgetting the invisible.
Yeah. Carol Lee wrote a poem about how we're vanishing, because Native people are always supposed to be vanishing, right? And part of it's how we count each other, right? Because like I got into it with somebody from City Hall. I won't name names here, but I've gone on record about it already. Who was saying, you can't have an indigenous recognition space, because um, the Latinx population has pretty much claimed that whole space. Understand that we are the same people. That border wasn't always there.
That's right. We have to just, flush all those borders away, all of them.
All of them.
All of them. There's a lot of them too. Some,
Yeah.
some we even embrace, some of them we even embrace, like you just said.
The
So
rough ones are the ones in your head. We can get rid of the lines on the map. That's
yeah, we
easy.
should have a,
Paint over them, do whatever. The stuff that gets in your own head, that's the problem.
that's a problem. We need to have one of those cosmic washing machines. We just put no cosmic washing machine.
Yeah.
Like remember the those funny, funky. What were they? Well, first they were vendors up on Bay Street. Was it Bay Street, or maybe by Aquatic Park? That little walkway
Yeah.
by the, and then we have the congueros.
Oh,
You look
yeah.
down from that little walkway up there, and they
Yeah.
had a lot of vendors. And there used to be a big giant cardboard box where you could stand up in it. And they had a lot of signs on it. And I don't even know where I'm going now, but it had a lot of signs on it. And then they had a little opening where you could see somebody would say something to you, and you exchange, and maybe you give them $1 or 50 cents. But I ran out of tape. I was going to come up with this really good idea, but that's a goner now.
I think that box is actually, somebody was starting before the whole COVID thing, the San Francisco Museum. And I believe he has that box.
Oh, really?
I read poems standing next to that box not a year and a half ago.
You did?
in that little Kerouac street. I'm not.
I'm so happy that box is still around. That was really groovy. And also the guy, the pickup with the piano in the back,
Yes, indeed.
and a
Yeah.
rose, like a rose on a vase,
Right.
and suited up playing piano.
Yeah. This San Francisco. I mean, it's every city's got their quirky, but it's had some really interesting quirky moments. I was giving a cousin a tour of the city one time, and we're walking. We just passed Van Ness on Market Street, and
Uh-huh.
he looked up and he went, "Is that a llama in a truck?" And I looked up and I said, "Yeah." And
What did what did he say?
he's
What
like, "Is that a llama in the back of a pickup truck?" I'm like,
llama?
"Yeah, yeah, llama in a truck. It's San Francisco. It could be anything."
I thought you meant like a priestess or something.
No, no, an animal, a fur-bearing animal in the back of a truck.
Oh, that's not nice. Animal, you know.
Like, why not?
You get to see the city. Get to see the city.
It's, you know, there are all kinds of tourists in San Francisco. Why not a llama in a truck?
Yeah, you know, a little llama with something to eat and water and go slow, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah. So you want to
The
trade
po-
poems again?
What now?
You want to trade some poems?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who's next? I can't remember. I
Blow
think,
some poems.
um, you want to get a little serious? We're about to the end.
Yeah, let's get just a little, just a little.
Little serious.
Yeah.
Okay. This one's called Dangerous.
Okay.
I've put my body in dangerous places and wasn't being my father's daughter dangerous, traveling in possession of a womb and a brain, crumpled bits of understanding and expectation hidden under the lining of these shoes, willingness to walk with my sisters, to sit not quiet but talking in among the beans, the seeds, the plants passed hand to hand, the unpublished poems whispered to dried sage leaves and handed on in hope. Asada, you are my relative, my teacher, a woman in danger as we all are in these and other times, a woman whose face is on a poster, whose registered fingerprint can be waved up, called up. We were not meant to live this long. We were none of us meant to live this long. Endangered, in danger, dangerous.
Ah, we were not raised to live this long. Ah, that's a thoughtful poem.
Thank you.
Yes. Border fever 105.7 degrees. Remember all this? For Jacqueline Ame Rosemary, 7 years old from Guatemala, with a fever of 105.7 degrees, who died in custody for 8-year-old Felipe Gomez Alonso, also from Guatemala, who died under custody of Customs and Border Protection on December 24, 2018. For all migrant and immigrant children and their families separated on the road north. Why do you cry? Those are not screams you hear across this cage. It is a symphony, the border guard says. There is a girl up ahead, made of sparkles. Is she me or is she dead? On the custody floor, 105.7 degrees. Where do I go? Where did they go? Where do I go to breathe no more? A lost flame, a firefly, racing for freedom. Where did she go? Yeah. We were feeling so helpless, remember? And we still are. I know I was feeling so helpless. I just can't stand what they call the shelter industry, detention camps.
Yeah.
I just can't stand all that. You know, children, we know all this. We've all talked about it. We've all felt it. We've all seen it. And we've all investigated it. We've all seen the photographs and the videos. And it was good that we all responded. Whatever way whatever way we could, we all responded. And yet it was still there in some way. And yet it wasn't. I remember being in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Jackson Hole. That was I think it was a Jackson Hole High School. And I visited one of the classes. And, the students were, young little antelopes, they're like 10th graders. And one of them said, I read something from this book. I don't know if I had this poem yet. I think I read Every Day We Get More Illegal. And they had looked at that poem. So one of the boys said, I feel like half of me is still there in Mexico, because his family had crossed that borderline, that border wall somehow. I don't know how they did it. He was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And he said in his poem that half of him, he could really feel it. Half of him was still in Mexico in this case. Imagine feeling like you're just a half. And I remember reading the story, you may have read it. Same thing, a mother and a son were able to cross. How they did it, I don't know. We don't know. But they had their little apartment, their little room in some city up here. And he had actually been in a detention center for a long time. It was funny, he got brought back and came together with his mother. And she said, he's not the same guy. He's not the same. He's in his room all the time. That's all he does. And when we go outside to get a little walk, he just walks ahead of me by himself. And that's it. So I'm hoping that he's better now and the families are better, but that kind of gives us that other lens. Outside the ball, the wall is kind of out there, but there's still that stinking wall managed to creep into their self. But they're going to eventually challenge that and become whole again. Like from what you're doing in San Francisco, for example.
We have to make sure we give them the tools to do that, because this taking kids away from their parents thing is on brand for the US. This is what they did to us. That's what they're doing now. It is the same game. And I will tell you right now that working with adult survivors of the boarding school system, it's possible to heal, but we have to give them the tools. And it's part of the job of poets to furnish some of those.
You're right. You're right. Maybe that's something we can focus on some more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way to go. Thank you for doing all that good work, Kim.
You too, man. It's the job, right?
It's a job. Yeah, you're right.
I want to thank you both. That was a fabulous discussion, and so many thank yous are coming in the comments and the questions. It's been a really warm chat. For all of you wondering, I will be sending around an email tomorrow with links to rewatch this, links to purchase the books from tonight, as well as a calendar list of what's upcoming at Copperfield. So if you just watched and hung out tonight, no big deal. We got you covered tomorrow. So yeah, thank you so much, both of you. Any last comments or words you want to say?
Just thank you, Juan Felipe. It's good to get some time together.
Oh yeah, same here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kim, and for all your work and for having a great conversation, like sister and brother. That's how I felt.
Me too.
Great.
And Copperfield, muchas gracias. And City Lights, muchas gracias.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Josiah Louise. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you, Melissa, for being here. Thank you, Bill is here. Who else do I know? Thank you, everybody who attended.
Thank you, everybody. And Karen, Kathleen, and Randy, and Pam, somewhere in Sebastopol, my buddies from UCLA, and all my friends from the mission, and early days, middle days, and nowadays, and the new days that we're going to create with our hearts.
All right. Well, have a great evening,
Thank
everyone.
you, Jamie.